So I'm Tanya Berger-Wolf. I have a multiple research personality. So I'm professor of computer science and engineering, electrical computer engineering, and evolution ecology and organismal biology at The Ohio State University. I'm also director of the Translational Data Analytics Institute and also very recently a director of the newly established National Science Foundation Harnessing Data Revolution Imageomics Institute, establishing a whole new field of science, as well as director and co-founder of the AI for Conservation nonprofit WildMe. So yes, lots of different affiliations and hats you can see on my head. So, and this talk really combines all of these um, kind of personas that I embody. So with that, one of the things that we keep on hearing is, especially about biodiversity, is that we're losing biodiversity at an unprecedented scale. People have termed the period we're in as the sixth extinction. And the problem is that we're losing things at a rate that where our science and technology methods, so our science can't even tell us how fast we're losing and what to any degree of precision. So the International Unit for Conservation of Nature, IUCN Red List, is the official international organization that is tasked with keeping track of biodiversity of the world. And so when we say that these species are endangered, it is because the Species Commission for IUCN Red List has reviewed data and determined that the status of that species is endangered. That implies a lot of policy and resource, there's changes in policy and how the species are managed, as well as resource allocation. So of the 9 million estimated species of animals that are plants and animals that are out there, the IUCN Red List monitors about 160, 140 at the moment. Of those, about 18,000, their official conservation status are data deficient. So which means we have no idea how many, where they are, what's the range, and so on. This is not obscure, rare species. I mean, they're rare. These are killer whales, orcas, iconic, species, the largest marine animal. So we don't know anything. So how can we make decisions? For about 47,000 more species, their conservation status may be known, but the population trend is unknown. So we don't know if they're doing better, worse, what is trajectory of their population. And that again, iconic species like polar bears. Even for species where we do know what, or at least IUCN Red List has data. So the global population of whale sharks, the largest fish on Earth, was estimated to be, in 2009, was estimated to be 103,000 with a standard error between 27,000 and 180,000. So that's a very scientific way of saying we have no clue, right? So how do you make policy decisions? How do you make management decisions? How do you put resources based on something like that? So basic data. And so how do we know how fast the population of African elephants declines and how far whales travel, what's their range and migration routes, or how many bobcats are left in the world and how many turtle hatchlings survive? I mean, we don't have enough scientists or even volunteers or managers to follow animal everywhere. And things like radio colors and satellite tags are expensive to put on, and they last a relatively short amount of time. They provide very different data, sure, but it takes about $3,000 to put a GPS color on a wild animal, at least. And so, and occasionally they can be, and it's not a danger-free process for the animal or for the humans involved. So what do we do? So images today are the most abundant, readily available source of information about anything, right? From what you had for lunch to what's in your backyard, or what animals are on all the are out there in the wild. And these images come from scientists, field assistants, camera traps, drones, as well as tourists going on these safaris and whale watching tours and taking pictures and posting them on the social media. In fact, here you see two pictures from a class that we um, that we teach. Well, we're teaching and about to teach again, field computational ecology, and this is the top two pictures. Students from different fields, ecology and evolution biology, natural resources, and engineering, from different universities, different countries. This is, in this case, on the right, it's University of Illinois Chicago, Princeton University, and University of Nairobi students working together on projects that bring all their expertise together in a way where the outcomes could not have been done by any one of them alone. And so how do we take all these millions of images coming from all of these sources, whether it's drones or camera traps or social media posts, and extract information, something useful, such as the basic numbers of how many animals are out there? Right? Can you find all the elephants in all of these? Come on, how many? No? All right. So this is precisely why we built a system called Wildbook, which is now the system of the nonprofit Wild Me. Started with a research project, actually started with a class project in that field computation ecology class, and now is a nonprofit uh, that where we can take all these images and, using machine learning and computer vision, find all the ones that contain animals, find where the animals are in those pictures, put a bounding box around each one, including that baby elephant hiding behind its mom, and identify not only species, as in savanna elephant, humpback whale, hawksbill turtle, and gravy zebra, but down to individual animal, as in Zippy the zebra, Joe the giraffe, and Terry the turtle. And so then, and so
I wonder, how do they sort through them all and then identify individual animals? Each image is processed through a series of convolutional neural networks and matching algorithms. The first network determines whether there are any animals of interest, in this case, zebras. The next set of networks localize each animal in its own subregion and classify the species. At this point, background segmentation is performed on the subregion to generate a rough mask of the zebra. Once this is done, key points are extracted from the zebra and feature descriptors are built. These descriptors serve as a sort of fingerprint that can be compared for similarity against previously identified individual animals in a large database. The scores from this comparison allow the system to decide which animals are the most likely matches. When the match has high enough confidence, it's accepted immediately. Matches that have lower confidence are shown to a human expert, who then makes the final decision.
And we can do this. We can do this for any striped, spotted, wrinkled, notched animal, as well as in marine or terrestrial, as well as using the shape of a whale's fluke or the dorsal fin of a dolphin. There, what you saw there in the video is one particular approach. That's the first one in this series from 2013. We're now 11 algorithms deep. And constantly added. The system is open, so you can plug different algorithms, and people are constantly improving and adding to the system. And so then, with information on when and where the image was taken, you can really start using pictures to track animals, count them, and even infer their social networks. So this is a page from a Wildbook for cetaceans, whales, and dolphins. There's an example where you see Pinchy, sperm whale. She is the most cited animal in this Wildbook, Book. She was cited more than 600 times, 637 encounters. And even though Wildbook was a fluke book, and so Wildbook was not in existence in 96 and 95, the once this system was up, people can upload historic data, in this case going back to 1995. Sperm whales are social animals, so you do see that social network of co-encounters, co-sightings of the animal. And these species do not travel very far, so she is sighted mostly around Dominica. But the fluke book now has more than 2 million photographs. And these are numbers from about a month. So I checked today. We're um, close to, uh, so we're over 284,000 encounters, reported sightings of uh, 58, 400 something identified individuals. So in 1 month, there have been added more than 100 actually identified individuals. This is incredible. The entire BOEM catalog of North American whales is in Flukebook. They're using it for species monitoring, for population monitoring. We're adding orcas as well. There are 5 species here. We're even using the social media photographs, in this case, uh, publicly posted videos on a popular platform of animals, so we can automatically build an intelligent agent that goes and finds the publicly posted videos of species that for which we have wild books, and sends them off to image analysis. When an animal is identified, it's added to the appropriate wild book using the title and the description, figuring out when and where the video was taken. If there's not an information, then the intelligent agent generates text, a question asking, "Hey, when did you see this animal?" People respond, and then give a link. Hey, at 2 minutes 46 seconds, we found this whale shark MXA 700. Here's everything we know about it, and a link to the page in the Wild Book. In this case, um, Wild Book for whale sharks. That actually is expanded to Wild Book for sharks. Um, Sharkbook.ai, and people respond. Almost everybody is the most common response is, "Wow, this is amazing. How can I help?" Right? So we get people right where they are, right there. The engagement. They didn't even know that their vacation videos of swimming with whale sharks could help science and conservation. And it does. There it is, the July 2017 added from YouTube, the sighting of this whale shark that has been sighted many times before and already after. And in fact, at the bottom of every page, there is in Wild Books, there is the all the contributors of data to that specific individual, right? So it is that specific individual, the different conservation organizations and research projects and the intelligent agent contributed data to, because these are global species. There is not one project, not one organization that has the information about all, even one individual, and certainly not about the entire species, right? And so it is by putting together that information that we can build the global view of the species. The whale shark wild book has so this is for all the sharks together. There's more than 16,000 uniquely identified sharks. There's about 13,000 whale sharks that are more than 13,000 whale sharks that have been uniquely identified from all the efforts of citizen scientists uploading, the conservation projects and research projects, as well as uh, people posting there. And one very intelligent agent that scours the social media posts. And in fact, the social media posts today constitute more than half of the sightings. Of course, they're constrained to very particular locations, so they don't constitute more than half of the data, but they're more than half of the sightings are coming from social media. And the IUCN Red List entry for whale sharks has been updated using Wildbook data to represent global population, because today we have more than 10% of estimated global population uniquely identified, not just counted. And the most comprehensive study on the biology of whale sharks was published uh, using Wildbook data and co-authored by 37 authors, most of whom met through the pages of Wildbook. Those things at the bottom of here's whales who's contributed data, that's how most of them met. And that's how, that enables that collaboration and understanding things like seasonality of migration patterns and so on. So we would not have been able to see those patterns without putting data together. We have Wildbook platforms. We have platforms for more than 60 species, from marine to terrestrial, from from sharks and manta rays to giraffes and African wild dogs, as well as skunks and turtles. And one of probably my most favorite is there at the bottom, weedy and leafy sea dragons. Those are seahorses, indicator species for those coral reefs um, that you studied, and they're endangered species. They're mostly they're in Australia. It is becoming a platform which is used for conservation decisions and population management. The same technology that was the technology of Wildbook was used, in fact, for the first ever full census of an entire species using photographs from ordinary citizens. This is the endangered gravy zebras, 95% of whom are in Kenya. So these are not the zebras you're thinking of. Uh, the zebras you're thinking about are the plain zebras, also known as common zebras, thousand Serengeti migration with wildebeest. Nuh-uh. These are the endangered one. You see them mostly in the zoos. There's estimated about 3,000 left, but the full population count and hasn't been the precise population count hasn't been done. The estimates have been done. And so for the first time in January 2016, for 2 days, hundreds of people were driving around Kenya taking pictures of every gravy zebra they encountered. It was a massively organized event with a lot of organizations providing the volunteer logistic support for the event. And hundreds of people participated from the school kids and Maasai rangers and the U.S. ambassador to Kenya at the time. There he is, Bob Godek in the middle there. And tourists with telephoto cameras took more than 40,000 images of gravy zebras in 2 days. And we processed them all, found the zebras in all of them, and identified them, and provided the most accurate count of the population to date. So 2350 plus minus 92. So accurate that in fact Kenya Wildlife Service went from saying this is not how we do population estimates, this is not the protocol, to this is exactly how we're doing population estimates from now on. And in fact, you're on the hook every 2 years. And so in January 2018, we did another event. So Great Gravies Rally was held again, and the outcome was that there are more than 2,800 or 2,800 plus minus 150 animals. So the population is growing, and they also asked us to add giraffes to the count, because at the time they were just reclassified from the three species of reticulated Maasai and Rothschild from the subspecies of one species to three separate species, and so the reticulated giraffe gained the species status. Another endangered animal, so we added them to the count. People took pictures of giraffes as well. And this is my absolutely the most favorite giraffe in the world. We call it Emojiraffe. I don't know if you can see the heart and a smiley face right there. So that one is obviously easy to recognize if you ever see it again. But that data, so we repeated the event also in January 2020, right before the pandemic, and we're holding off on the result because we're redesigning the system and training people in Kenya to use the system rather than for us to do the whole analysis. And so to conduct an event like this, it's not just the technology, right? The logistics of doing it and the commitment, right? You have to change the whole approach. The technology is the enabler, but it's the people who do it. And it is because the people who do it, right, that there is trust in the outcome. Otherwise, it's a black box and a bunch of white scientists and engineers coming into Kenya doing some, you know, black box processing, spitting out the answer and telling local governments what they need to be doing based on that. That is not the right approach. Technology is the enabler and a partner, but trust in AI can be engendered only through the participatory project the process, through this partnership between the human and AI, and as well as the partnership where agency is given to the humans, where we not mystify but democratize the tools, the technology, and enable everybody to use it. And so with that, uh, we got donations from through NSF support of 270 GPS-enabled cameras. We created a whole protocol where people could also be using their own cameras, and to make sure that you don't need a GPS-enabled camera to contribute data, people could synchronize through these QR codes of everybody who's in the same car. Um, so we knew where the data were coming from and the location of where the data were coming from, even if people didn't have GPS. Created with the help of many, as I said, nonprofit organizations in Kenya and the Gravy Zebra Trust, Wildlife Direct, and Laikipia Conservation and others, created a booklet about the Great Graves Rally, explaining to people why they're participating, what they're doing, how to take good pictures, and what's going to happen with those pictures afterwards. Conducted training in many locations, including all the way up north to Northern Rangers in English, Swahili, and Samburu, which is Northern Maasai. So it's very interesting how the translating GPS and setting instructions uh, to from English to Swahili and from Swahili to Samburu. So you see here Kenya Wildlife Service rangers with AR-15s there on the ground because it's a dangerous job protecting the national Kenya's endangered species, and as well as I said, guides and Maasai rangers learning how to use and how to set GPS-enabled cameras so they would be uh, contributing data and contributing to then policy and decision making. And indeed, and we also conducted workshops of training people in the sort of using Wildbook and the data science and AI behind it. I love that. Let's wonder where the Wi-Fi is weak. And that's one of the challenges. It is indeed, uh, we're operating in uninstrumented environments. There is no Wi-Fi. There is no cell signal quite often in places where we are. So using things that would take for granted, like the system, oh, it's a web-based system, you can just upload the pictures and get the results. That is not the case. So how do we adapt to the conditions and the setting where the system is actually being used and is needed. And this, one of the stars of this process is Rosemary Warungu. She's a local, she's a Kenyan scientist and has collected for many years, data on the endangered gravy zebras. So what happens with all of these data, and can we actually count using photographs? So we've analyzed data from several of these events, including the Great Gravy's Rally, analyzing for bias, spatiotemporal bias. Do people only take pictures next to the roads? I mean, and if probably, and if so, are we actually seeing all the zebras, right? So we could, because the event is conducted over 2 days and people are kind of allocated to cover, there are teams that are kind of registering, and it's a little bit of a competition event over the whole country. So teams registered and they cover the entire range of the species. And we could see also, we could test how many photographs were taken, how many were useful, and as well as of the sightings of zebras, how many of them were sightings of individuals that haven't been previously seen during the course of the event. And so by mid-morning of the second day, essentially no new animals were sighted. So every animal that could be sighted was sighted. We could also compare 2016 to 2018 and soon 2018 to 2020. And and be much more confident that yes, we have seen all animals. If they're hiding so well that nobody has seen them, even in the intervening years, right? So so then what comes out of it is the uncertainty bounds on the population size estimate, that not only nationally, yes, the population has grown in the intervening years. This is data from 2016 and 2018. So yes, the population has grown because then certainty bounds are well separated, right? Uh, these are two on the left. We could also compare county by county where the gravy zebras are present, and that allows people to look at different management policies and different habitats in different counties. Not only that, but looking also at the percent of non-adults. You need about 30% of non-adults to sustain the population, and because you have to be at replacement rate, right? So otherwise the population starts shrinking. And so all counties but one, and this is looking at 2016 because the event was conducted in January, there is no point in looking in 2018 for the percent of non-adults because they give birth in the spring. So the 2016 data, right? The percent of non-adults was at about 30 in nationally and in most counties, except for one. So Meru County, right, is not doing well. And so the question is, why? Any ideas? You guys can unmute yourself and just shout out ideas. No? Nobody wants any ideas? Come on, why would there not be enough baby zebras surviving to adulthood?
Maybe there's like a mismatched gender ratio.
All
Or
right,
maybe
not
this is
enough
against
babies
these
born
girls.
in the first place. Okay, that's one suggestion. One idea. Any others? Come on, guys. Fine, I'll give you the answer. So Meru County, it's for actually a very good reason. Meru County is was doing such a great job with lion conservation that there were too many predators. Yeah, there wasn't the mismatch, the imbalance, just not the sex, but the predator to prey. So the lions were thriving, and so the baby zebra, that's an easy snack, barcoded. Yeah, I'll take that one. And so because the data were so compelling, because the data were collected by Kenyans for Kenya, and they participated in the process, the trust was there to put in place a policy of lion contraception that puts the predator and prey in balance. It would be a very controversial policy otherwise without hard data, right? And um, and the policy is working. We now have actually data that it is. And in fact, the entire species management plan, the gravy zebra species management plan, uh, was based on that data and the commitment that this event will be a regular event biannual. We're skipping 2022 because of COVID, and the next event will be in 2023 in January. And it was signed by all the governors, the 6 governors of the counties which have gravy zebras, and the Kenya Wildlife Service Assistant Director in charge of mountain conservation area, Simon Gitau, said this shows the power of citizen science and machine learning for conservation, right? And there were 3 firsts in that statement. It made me cry, actually, not nearly. I was totally tearing up when he said that. First of all, this is the first time where the citizen science, right, the participation of everyone contributed to policy directly, where it's not an established protocol, which were they were doing before by KWS officials doing flyovers and using the specific statistic to estimate population size. The youngest photographer was 3 years old in the first event, right? This is incredible that it all because all you have to do, right, is click on a button or touch the screen to take a picture. That's all, and you're contributing to the process, you're contributing to the policy. So the second first is that the, the 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 protocol itself. So this is the first time the Kenya Wildlife Service used used an outside organization like Wildbook, WildMe, to um, to determine the numbers that will determine the policy. And then it's the first time that they use machine learning in any kind of decision making. So that is incredible outcome of this. And uh, even more incredible is that the population is growing. And if it crosses 3,000 from the 2020 data, then it will have been for the first time that the population would cross 3,000 since 1970s. So these policies are working. They're doing the right thing. And as I said, Rosemary Warungu, one of the stars of this, you can see more in an episode created by Kenya Citizen TV called Wildlife Warriors. It's a series. Each episode is about a different Kenyan wildlife conservation hero, and the one about gravy zebras is about Rosemary Warungu. The whole series, and in fact, the episode on African painted dogs received an award at the International Movie Festival of Conservation Films. The IUCN entry for gravy zebras is also been updated, not only based on Wildbook for zebras, but based on this event, the Great Gravies Rally. And it will be continued to reassessed based on this data. So in fact, going back to the whale sharks, so this is the second entry that was updated. There are several more that coming up with through the Species Review Commission. And going back to whale sharks, the conservation status of the whale sharks based on Wildbook data was changed from vulnerable to endangered, and the population trend from stable to decreasing, not because the species were doing worse, but because we had the right data to make the right decision, to put the right policies in place just like here, getting the right data. Simon Gitau also said information is power, right? And it is the power to make decisions and knowing that you're making the right decisions. So with that, are we getting the right data, right? Are we actually making decisions based on the right data? If we're using all these publicly posted images of animals from all these social media platforms, there are two issues that come up. One is that what's gold for scientists and scientists and conservation managers and governments making decisions, geotagged, uniquely identified images of animals, is also, unfortunately, gold for poachers and wildlife criminals. So it's the geotagged images of animals are the beacons for wildlife poachers. And you will see signs everywhere. Please turn off. Please don't turn off your geotagging function. Most people don't know that they are even using it, and they are if they're using this. Um, please don't post on social media. And again, people forget. And a selfie with an elephant at Kruger National Park in South Africa, led the poachers within 2 hours to the location. So, luckily, unsuccessful event. But in general, our online data is putting the endangered species at risk, and we're looking at sort of changing the policy and the addressing the privacy issues, the leakage of data for tigers, sorry, for endangered species. We call it privacy for tigers. So, but it has to be done. There is no policy currently protecting data for endangered species. So protecting their digital footprint. And so how the other aspect of using photographs as the source of information about animals, and particularly publicly posted images and all the social medias, is the following: is the bias, right? So you have the true population, great. So the first part of the bias is being there at the right place at the right time to even see the animals, right? So, and it's true whether it's you're using a camera trap, the automatically triggered motion activated cameras. So it has to be at the right place for the animals to pass in front of it, or the drone, right? So being able to see it, if the animal is passing under trees or coverage, then the drone won't even see it. Or a human going on safaris. But and whether you're taking picture at all or not. The second bias comes from the decision to take a picture. We've done preliminary study where on the same safari tour, 2 hours, 6 people in the car. So at every stop, a field assistant would write down every animal, every species, how many they're seen, observed at that stop. And then we looked at what people actually took pictures of. In the same car, 2 hours, some people had more than 500 images in two in 2 hours. So that if you do the math right, that's about on average 2 per minute. I'm not counting the tick, 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 multiple ones. Others had 4. Right? There's some people are birders, avid birders, and that's the only thing that they will take pictures of. Others, this is their first safari tour, so every zebra, impala, and everything else, there's going to be a picture of in the first hour, and then in the second hour, it actually drops off. And so that's also there's some novices, for others, this is their 5th tour, and the only thing that they're interested in is, the big 5, the rhinos, lions, uh, zebras, giraffes, and I'm missing one. Um, hippos, no, of Africa, and then uh, you have a full variety. So there's a huge bias. Then there's a bias of what are they going to post on social media, which social media, and whether it's going to be public. So which tools are we going to use to collect data from those platforms and how they're changing the access rate and APIs that they're giving for people to collect data, and then what model we're going to use to estimate, let's say, population size. And in the end, the only thing that we actually care about is the error in the final estimate versus the true population, right? So so we set out to figure out this whole pipeline of not to estimate the exact bias at every step. That is not only not feasible, it's also not particularly useful because it also changes with the changing in platforms and technology. But to go and besides, the forward bias may not actually be the absolutely the right thing. But to go the way we looked at it, and again using machine learning and a massive Amazon Mechanical Turk study to go from the num the um, number of images posted to the number of animals posted to the number of animals uh, that are actually photographed, and from both images and animals, and then estimating from the number of animals photographed what was actually the number of animals in the wild, right? And again, so I'll skip a lot of the details. I'm happy to talk about much more detail of how we structured the study and what we're actually estimating. The punchline is that they there are two things going on. First of all, we were adjusting the entire process, able to provide, so the black lines, they're 4 official population size estimates for gravy zebras, and the purple circles are the ones that are produced by our entire pipeline. So came closer than any other method and anything that was there before to the official estimates. The caveat is that this was done in 2018 and we're redoing the whole thing now with more species because the platform that we used, it turns out, about 2 years for people to post images, and we're now sort of nearing the end of the data collection. And pandemic, one thing that it did is people posted their images and videos on social media that go back years because they finally had the time, or they were vicariously reliving these trips through their photographs. But yes, so we actually have a lot more data. And so that's so watch this space. This is a study done by a team of undergraduate and high school students. Some of the high school students are now also undergraduates, of looking at 4 different platforms and 6 different species and understanding sort of the dynamics of um, posting photographs and the information that we get from that. And so with that, I hope I give you at least a taste of how AI and data science can enable science conservation and public engagement by bringing communities together and by humans working in partnership with each other and with the AI and computational approaches to provide solutions that people trust. And I would like to thank a large number of people. So the co-founders of the Wildbook project, Jason Holmberg, Chuck Stewart, Dan Rubenstein, the team of Wild Me, the nonprofit that is the home of Wildbook, and the supporters, the many supporters that provided uh, support for our projects, from National Science Foundation and Microsoft AI for Earth to Moore Foundation, Noah Boehm, and many other organizations, as well as thousands of volunteers that collect data, annotate data, test our algorithms, contribute algorithms, and most importantly, the conservation scientists and managers that do the work, uh, occasionally with the help of our technology, that actually leads, it makes an impact on protecting the biodiversity of our planet. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was such an incredible talk. So if anyone wants to chime in with questions, feel free. This was like so thought-provoking.
I have a question from the management perspective on the marine side. I would imagine that most of the photos that you're seeing are going to be close to the coast or people that are able to access on a boat or something. So as a manager or someone trying to create a species protection plan, do you see bias in underestimating home ranges because of the richer data along the coastline? And how do you address that when things need to be data driven?
Right, so that's a great question, and typically it's a combination of studies. So for that, that is a question that we often get, and Shane Giro and who leads the Dominica Conservation Dominica project, where Pinchy, our ham, the very social sperm whale, lives, and Jake Levinson, another scientific advisor who leads a lot of the work on the other whales and as well as the whale sharks. So there, for different species, that's why the Species Commission for IUCN Red List, right? There's a Species Commission of scientists who study that species that take into account the biases in those data and account for these biases. So population size now estimated from Wildbook data with the adjustments and a lot of the understanding that there is a bias towards coastal sightings and near coast, and that is underrepresentation. I just don't want to, because it says in that IUCN Red List that it is an right. So it's an it's an overrepresentation of males, and particularly single males, younger males. So, but knowing the population structure by sex and age, typically they can give a much better estimate of the whole population size. In terms of the ranges and travel, so there is a complementary approaches. So they do use satellite tags for some species, for some animals, but it provides really complementary. You can do 1 or 2 or 3, 10 with satellite tags, and then massively, thousands with images. And we do have these migrations are the same animals seen 5,000 miles apart. In and I'm trying to load. It's going to take a while if I load. I didn't preload, unfortunately. For some reason, I didn't think. I don't know why. But while it's loading, I'll talk because I wanted to show the map of the whole thing. Um, so the but the point is that even with these ad hoc sightings, right, the same animal is seen in Mexico as well as in Philippines, and so that gives a sense. They're also now starting to engage native fishermen, so who go out a little bit further away from coast, and certainly scientists go on intentional surveys that go further out into the seas and the oceans, with many conservation organizations actually doing that on a regular basis. But don't dismiss the citizen science kind of or the public contribution, because the population, the first sightings of the Madagascar straits, of the Madagascar, sorry, the Mozambique Straits off of the coast of Madagascar, Nosy Bay Island population of whale sharks, that was first sighted by tourists. And then a Belgian scientist, uh, Dr. Damian, she got grant to study that population because it wasn't there before. It was a newly established, first sighted by tourists, and then the scientists came in and started studying it. And there was also a conservation organization that put in place a little bit of kind of protection and policy. Not a little bit, a lot. Stella Diamond is the scientist. But it's a great question, Sonia.
So, hey there, this is Tim. Thanks for an awesome presentation. The work seems really cool, absolutely crazy. For the, I'm trying to understand like how much can this be scaled up to be cover areas that are not as confined maybe as like the zebra population that was being looked at.
Sorry, Tim,
yeah.
just this to go back to Sonia, to your question, they're also now using drones to track whales all the way, and we have 2 algorithms that can use images from drones, and even for larger whales, satellite images to identify individuals. So not only, yeah. Tim, I'm very sorry. Back to.
No, not at all. That's actually sort of answers some of the question I'm thinking of. Like, I can see how this could be used in concert with citizen science for a relatively like confined area where you might be able to cover that entire area over the course of a few days, like it sounds like the photographs of zebras was. For like the whale shark example, where it was the conservation or the at-risk status was changed. Is that all done through imagery, or is that done first with imagery and then like that, like what you sort of implied, that then instigated new studies, and that is what led to
Yeah, so the data came from images. The data for that all of the data came from Wildbook, from images. The review then, so you can't just change, oh, okay, we have now maybe somebody has to make that decision to change the status. And so each species in IUCN Red List has a species commission, which is comprised of scientists who are expert in that species. And so, but all of the data came from Wildbook.
that's
All
incredible.
of that are images. Yeah.
Do you like, where do you see where do you see this has the most potential, and some of the limits for like, redefining our accuracy level on species numbers?
That's a great question, and thank you for that, because I also it's exactly the question, a set of questions for tomorrow. So I'm also on a panel on AI for climate tomorrow with actually wonderful another AI for conservation spirit, Topher White, who established Rainforest Connection, which uses sound to monitor rainforests, both the species biodiversity as well as logging, illegal logging there attempts. But so that's one of the questions. So where do we see this going, right? There's a lot, and there's quite a bit in this space of using images, using acoustic monitoring, and engaging and engaging people who otherwise would not have been, and taking data opportunistically and intentionally from different sources. So awesome. You have platforms now like eBird, iNaturalist, Wildbook. There is a technology, drones, massive sensors. Sensors are cheap, including camera sensors, right? Are cheap, and everybody has these things that are sensors. there's a lot of data that's coming from lots of different directions, including satellite, right, for monitoring coastal lines, for example, or even tracking whales or tracking population, big migration. There's also RFID technology in the passive active RFID that is light enough. You can put, you can put it on insects even, and certainly on birds. And the reader on that RFID, that to me is one of the most, you know, awesome ways to monitor to track animals. And the reader for those RFIDs on birds is on the International Space Station antenna. So that like, right, we're tracking animals from space, literally. So the thing is, we're giddy with our ability to collect data, right? To collect raw data. What do we do with it? I think this is where the really the challenge is. Not only, okay, we have the technology, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the technology. Now what? And so so how do we extract anything useful, anything trustworthy? And how do we, in the process, not only extract trustworthy, but I alluded to this a little bit. It cannot be that AI is the answer to everything, right? That this is the answer. It has to be applied. First of all, these solutions have to be created with with those for whom they're intended. It's not that citizen science is okay. Here's my photograph and I'm done, or sitting hours putting binding boxes to train the algorithms. That's not the right way to engage people. So it has to be participatory. It has to be with the communities for whom the solutions are then deployed. So there's trust. There has to be different voices represented in all of these solutions and structuring these approaches. And there's also the do no harm. I mean, all the issues of fairness, equity, and transparency and reproducibility of these methods, but also the do no harm. The cost of AI, first of all, there's a huge inequity, right, in who can use, who produces AI methodology and where it's deployed. If you look at the map of the world where majority of AI technology and methodology comes from, it's concentrated in very few countries. If you look at where it's deployed, in particular in cases like conservation and wildlife management and policy decisions, it's very different from where it's produced. So we have to change this attitude of, here's a black box solution. Give me your data. Data is a resource, right? Give me your data. Here's the answer. And the other part is AI is expensive. And it's expensive not only because it takes, the engineer's salary, because the technology itself, because you have to have the computers. It's also resource hungry. And so most of the supercomputing centers in the US have their own electric substation. Right? It's expensive for the resources, the very resources that in conservation we're trying to protect. To give you a sense, so pre-pandemic, internet was accounted for about 2% of CO2 emissions in the world, of energy use in the world. Sorry, it depends how you count. Of energy use in the world. It increased with the pandemic. So there was at the beginning there was a drop in energy use worldwide and then CO2 emissions worldwide, and we've not back, we've exceeded the pre-pandemic levels. And it's so technology is actually accounting for more and more of the resource drain of energy and water, particularly. Just, not to make you feel bad, but a Zoom call with video on uses 30 times more energy than without video on, right? And 15 hours of Zoom, the difference by turning off your video is enough to charge your cell phone for, I think, every night for I've seen estimates anywhere between 1 and 3 months. So it's a significant amount of energy. So we have to ask ourselves, by bringing in the technology, are we actually improving what's on the ground, right? By bringing in these solutions, and is the improvement worth it? So is the improvement in the estimate, population size estimate, right? What is it going to do? So I don't, you know, I have, when we publish papers in machine learning, in computer science more generally, yes, we talk about accuracy of algorithms and rigorous testing and all of these aspects. But if the accuracy of this specific algorithm, and we publish a paper every time we improve it by, I don't know, 0.2% or, you know. So, but if the improving 0.2% accuracy of that one algorithm has no impact on improving the accuracy of population size estimate or the range. And moreover, if that doesn't change the policy, then why? Why should we do that? Right? And why should we put all of these resources? And so the other part of it is also capacity building. So we don't we have to give this technology, bring it into the hands of those who actually use it, for them to make decisions. It's not my decision to make where should AI be deployed, right? I see it going in many different directions. Where is it going to be actually useful and make a difference in the ultimate support for decisions, because that's kind of where it's most useful, providing data for decision support and evaluating that decision making. And so that's why we train, Department of Interior workshop. We do workshops for Department of Interior and Fish and Wildlife, as well as for the for Kenyan rangers and anybody else who will ask. Right, we should be doing this because it's not the technology that will save our biodiversity; it's people. And I'll get off my soapbox.
I think Sonia, you had your hand up.
Yeah, is this supposed to end at 6? Can I ask one more quick question? Tanya, when you're talking about like what this data could be used for, I see a lot of it being really important for like almost like long-term point occurrence monitoring data and to be able to track that kind of long-term. You might have mentioned this, but what's like your average length? If I know people can go in and backfill and put in images from previous years, what's that average time length of? I guess we could just focus on whale sharks.
Oh, that really depends on the species. So are you asking specifically for social media or for what people upload on the Wildbook platform?
What people are uploading and what you're seeing for the
It
marine
depends
species.
on the species. I mean, there are some species that live longer than others and have been studied for longer. So, for whales, particularly since Boehm and NOAA use now Wildbook as their official platform, they've essentially uploaded their entire catalog that goes back to, in some cases, 1980s. We've seen for spotted sharks. In 2 years ago, Spotted Shark USA started a Wildbook and put out a call for people like, hey, if you have any, because they didn't have data, historic data. So, hey, if you have any picture of shark of that specific species, and I'm blanking out right now, please upload it to this website. And within within a month they had like hundreds of pictures, and then within a few months they were able to start seeing yearly, because people went back like 5 to 7 years, I think, at the beginning, and they could see the patterns, yearly patterns of the same sharks returning to the same shipwreck, right? So it took that little. But there are some species, and so for zebras, similarly, because scientists have been, there's more than 10 years of gravy zebra, and the Gravy Zebra Trust has I think going back to 2005, they started regularly monitoring the population. So that's the entire catalog will be uploaded. Again, we're snow leopards are coming online, that data, so that has been many years of monitoring. In some cases, it's the species that have never been monitored particularly well, so it's going to be spotty.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again so much for your time. This was such a fascinating talk. I just wanted to say briefly before we hop off, like out of all the webinars I went to during quarantine, I remember seeing Wildbook and Wild Me on a panel discussion, and it just really stuck in my mind. The work you do is so incredible, and I hope for the students, thank you to everyone who's able to come. And I hope for people watching the recording or coming to this event live, you'll remember this as a resource you can use going forward in your careers as conservation managers and working with wild places. Thank you again so much. Really grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you,
for the work
Tanya.
that you do. And this is a team. This is really, but the plural you, when we say the work you do, is the work that a large, large, large team of people does all over the world. So thank you guys.
Bye bye.
Thank you.